My friends all have better boyfriends than you. Those words left her mouth in the middle of dinner with her friends, loud enough for the whole table and half the restaurant to hear. That was the moment everything between us ended. I paid the bill, walked out, and never looked back. Now, years later, she's still single, trying to worm her way back into my life. And the same friends she once compared me to won't even bother setting her up anymore. Hey everyone, before diving deeper, remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoy stories like this. Thanks. This all started about 4 years ago, but I'm only now putting it into words, partly because I think I need to process just how surreal and painful it really was. Meeting Lila. I first met Lila when I was 25 and she was 23. Both of us worked downtown, though in different worlds. I was grinding as an accountant at a mid-size firm. She was in marketing at a new startup. We crossed paths at a happy hour event organized through some mutual friends. Lila had this radiant presence that drew people toward her. She was beautiful, sure, but it was more than that. She was energetic, outgoing, and seemed to light up every conversation. I was hooked almost immediately, and to my surprise, she seemed just as interested in me. The first year of dating her felt like winning the lottery. She was spontaneous, full of life, and made even ordinary weekends feel exciting. I wanted to be the kind of boyfriend who added to her happiness, so I did the small thoughtful things. Flowers from the grocery store, little picnics at the park, cooking dinner when she was stressed from work. She'd smile, laugh, call me sweet, and I thought I was doing everything right. The influence of her friends. The cracks started to show when she grew close to 2 women from her yoga class, Harper and Zoe. Both of them had boyfriends who lived flashy lifestyles, the kind that gets shown off on Instagram. Harper's boyfriend, Adrian, drove a BMW, dressed in expensive labels, and wouldn't shut up about his investment portfolio. Zoe's boyfriend, Julian, owned some kind of business, and he constantly showered her with jewelry or whisked her away to fancy restaurants. At first, Lila would simply make casual remarks after hanging out with them. Harper showed me this bracelet Adrian bought her. It's gorgeous. Or, Zoe said Julian surprised her with a weekend trip to Napa. Doesn't that sound amazing? Whenever I suggested we plan something similar, maybe a weekend getaway, she'd wrinkle her nose, like I had proposed camping in a swamp. Maybe something a little more special, she'd reply, with that tone that made it clear my ideas weren't good enough. Group dinners begin. About 6 months into our relationship, we started having regular group dinners. Adrian always picked the kind of restaurants where the cheapest entree was around $40. He'd glance at the menu with this fake surprise whenever I hesitated at the prices. Julian, meanwhile, made a point of flashing a different luxury watch each time, ensuring everyone noticed. I wasn't broke, but I was practical. I earned a stable salary as an accountant. I budgeted, I comparison shopped, I saved. To me, blowing $200 on a dinner for 2 seemed insane when I could cook something better at home for $20. But Lila started going quiet during these outings. She'd sit silently as Harper and Zoe bragged about gifts and trips, and I could sense her shrinking next to me. If I tried to join in on the conversation, someone inevitably cut me off or redirected the topic. Noah's more practical than romantic, Lila would say with a forced laugh whenever her friends asked about us. It was always delivered like an apology on my behalf. And the worst part wasn't even her words. It was the way she looked at me during those moments. Her eyes would flick to Adrian's shiny watch or Julian's designer shirt, then land on my plain button-down from Kohl's, and I'd see the disappointment clear as day. I started dreading those dinners, but Lila insisted they were essential for her social circle. The relationship shifts. Over time, her attitude toward me changed. She stopped appreciating the small things I did. When I brought her flowers, she'd brush it off with, "You don't need to do that." But it wasn't the sweet kind of dismissal. It was embarrassment, like she thought my gesture was childish. If I planned a cozy night at home with takeout and her favorite movie, she'd spend the evening scrolling through Instagram, sighing at pictures of her friends dining at high-end places. She began pushing me to buy things I didn't care about. Designer clothing, expensive dinners, a nicer car. When I explained I was saving for a house down payment, she'd roll her eyes. "You're always saving for something," she'd complain, as if financial responsibility was a flaw. Her friends grew openly condescending toward me. Adrian would toss out comments about men who play it safe, while staring right at me. Zoe would chirp about knowing your worth whenever relationships came up. And Lila? She never defended me. If anything, she subtly sided with them. The breaking point. The last straw came during a Friday night dinner in October. The group chose some upscale steakhouse downtown. Everyone ordered pricey cocktails and the most lavish cuts of steak. I ordered the chicken and a beer. A choice that made Lila visibly cringe, like I'd committed some embarrassing social faux pas. Halfway through the meal, Adrian smugly announced he was whisking Harper to Paris for the weekend. Just because, he grinned. Sometimes you have to remind your girl how special she is. Harper squealed, waving around photos of their first-class seats and a luxury hotel suite. Zoe and Lila leaned in eagerly, practically glowing with envy. I saw Lila's face darken as she scrolled through those pictures. Then Julian produced a little Tiffany box, sliding it across the table. Saw this and thought of you, babe. Inside was a diamond tennis bracelet worth more than 3 months of my salary. Zoe shrieked, waving it around, while Julian basked in the attention. You guys are so lucky, Lila muttered, her tone sharp. Then she ordered another martini. Sensing the night spiraling, I tried to redirect. That's really thoughtful, Julian. Zoe, it looks great on you. Thanks, Noah, Zoe replied with that patronizing sing-song tone reserved for children. It's important to be with someone who prioritizes making you feel special. Lila was unraveling, drinking too fast, muttering under her breath. When the check arrived, I reached for it as usual. That's when she snapped. You know what? I'm tired of pretending. Everyone froze. What do you mean? I asked, though I already knew. My Sethanac twisted. Look around this table, Noah. My friends all have better boyfriends than you. The air went silent. Harper and Zoe exchanged awkward glances. Adrian smirked, relishing the drama. Lila, I began. No, I'm serious, she pressed on. Harper gets Paris trips. Zoe gets diamonds. What do I get? Cheap dinners at Olive Garden and grocery store flowers. Heat flooded my face. I thought you liked. Look at what they get, Noah. Excitement. Adventure. Men who actually try to impress them. What do I get? Boring stability from someone who thinks splitting a Netflix password is romantic. Harper looked uncomfortable. Lila, maybe we should. But Lila cut her off, her voice rising. I'm embarrassed to be here with you. They all know I could do so much better. The table fell silent. Even the couple dining nearby turned to stare. I felt my Sethanac turn like I might be sick. Without a word, I reached for my wallet, pulled out enough cash to cover the entire table, and placed it down. Then I stood up. Excuse me? I said quietly, forcing calm into my voice. Where are you going? Lila demanded, her voice sharp. Home. You ladies enjoy your evening. And just like that, I walked out of that overpriced restaurant and headed to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for nearly 20 minutes, replaying the humiliation in my mind. The woman I had loved for 2 years had just publicly cut me down, reducing our relationship to nothing more than a comparison to her friends' shallow partners. She had stood there and admitted, loud enough for everyone to hear, that she was embarrassed by me. When I finally went inside my apartment, I poured myself a stiff drink and, for the first time in months, my thoughts felt clear. The aftermath. Lila stumbled home after midnight, clearly drunk and expecting me to soothe her. Noah, are you awake? I think I drank too much, she slurred. I rolled over and pretended to be asleep. By morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She brewed coffee, chatted about weekend plans, and even asked if I wanted to catch a movie later. It was surreal, like the previous night's explosion had been erased. About last night, I finally said. She barely looked up. What about it? What you said at dinner. She waved her hand dismissively. I was drunk. You know I didn't mean it. But she did mean it. I could see it in her eyes, the same eyes that had been filled with disappointment for months. She was ashamed. Ashamed of my car, my job, my clothes, the way I expressed love. She wanted a completely different kind of man. I think we need to take a break, I said. She laughed. Don't be dramatic. I said I was sorry. Except she hadn't actually said the words, I'm sorry. I'm going to stay at Ethan's place for a few days. We both need space to figure things out. Noah, you're being ridiculous. But I packed my bag anyway and left, breaking away. Lila blew up my phone that entire day. 6 calls. I ignored them all. By Monday, Her voicemails had shifted into anger. She accused me of being immature, demanded I come home, insisted we talk like adults. By Wednesday, panic had set in. She texted constantly, promising we could work things out, begging for a chance to explain. That week at Ethan's place gave me space to breathe, and to finally evaluate our relationship without Lila's influence. I realized I had been slowly reshaping myself to fit into her expectations. I had been apologizing for being practical instead of flashy, for being consistent instead of thrilling, for showing love with thoughtful gestures rather than expensive gifts. In short, I had been apologizing for who I was. The following Saturday, while Lila was out at brunch, I went back to our apartment. I packed up every one of my belongings and left my key on the counter. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to explain. She had made her opinion of me brutally clear. I found a small studio across town that same weekend, moved in, and set about cutting all ties. I changed my phone number, blocked Lila on every platform, and told my friends and family I didn't want to talk about the breakup. Lila's spiral. According to Ethan, Lila lost her mind when she realized I was gone for good. She called him sobbing, begged him for my new number, even showed up at my old job. But I had already secured a transfer to another office across the city. For months, she tried everything. She had Harper and Zoe message me on social media. She sent notes through mutual friends. Her sister even called, saying Lila was heartbroken. I ignored it all. The thing is, after the first few weeks, I wasn't even angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was simply finished. Lila had told me who she was, and I believed her. You can't come back from being told you're an embarrassment. Moving on. I threw myself into my career. Within 8 months, I was promoted to senior associate. I started working out, picked up hobbies I had long neglected, and reconnected with friends I drifted away from. Slowly, I felt like myself again. Meanwhile, I heard fragments of Lila's life through mutual acquaintances. She dove headfirst into dating apps, hunting for her so-called upgrade. She went out with finance bros, entrepreneurs, guys with flashy cars and designer wardrobes. On paper, they were everything she thought she wanted. Reality was less glamorous. One guy turned out to be married. Another was just mooching off his parents' money with no actual career. A third treated her like a transaction, expecting sex on the first date because he'd spent money on dinner. She complained that men didn't treat women well anymore. Chloe, Ethan's girlfriend, told me Lila whined that everyone's just looking for hookups. For a split second, I felt sympathy. But then I remembered sitting at that steakhouse table, her voice ringing out as she declared she was embarrassed to be with me. That sympathy evaporated instantly. The collapse of her circle. About a year after our breakup, the little friend group she had idolized began to unravel. Adrian, the Paris trip boyfriend, was caught cheating on Harper with a woman from his gym. Turns out his investment portfolio was nothing but credit card debt, and the BMW was leased. When Harper found out, she blasted the truth across social media. Julian, the big-spending businessman, turned out to be running a shady multi-level marketing scheme. When it inevitably collapsed, Zoe discovered he had been buying her gifts with borrowed money. Worse, he had racked up debts in her name. She dumped him and had to sell most of the jewelry just to pay it off. Suddenly, Lila's beloved better boyfriend's narrative wasn't looking so impressive anymore. Meeting someone new. About 18 months after the breakup, I dipped my toe back into dating. At first, it was casual dinners, conversations, simple evenings out. It felt refreshing to spend time with women who didn't roll their eyes at flowers, who actually appreciated low-key dates. That's how I met Grace. It happened on a quiet Saturday afternoon at Barnes & Noble. I was browsing the biography section when the woman next to me dropped a stack of books. I bent to help her gather them up and noticed they were all children's literature. "Thank you," she said with a warm smile. "I'm a kindergarten teacher, always looking for new books for my classroom." "That's really cool," I replied. "I bet that's rewarding work." "It is. What do you do?" "I'm an accountant. Not nearly as interesting as teaching 5-year-olds. She laughed. "Are you kidding? Numbers make sense. 5-year-olds are chaos in tiny shoes." We ended up standing there talking for 2 hours. Grace was genuine, funny, and curious about everything. My family, my job, my hobbies, even my thoughts on travel and books. When I mentioned possibly going back to school for my CPA license, her face lit up. "That's amazing. What made you decide to pursue it?" she asked, full of excitement. Not, "Why would you want more school?" Or, "Isn't that a lot of work?" Just pure support. We started dating slowly. And from the beginning, Grace appreciated every small gesture. Flowers, home-cooked meals, remembering something she had mentioned in passing. She didn't just accept those things. She cherished them. Grace's reactions to the simplest gestures constantly amazed me. When I planned thoughtful dates instead of flashy ones, her whole face lit up. If I made her breakfast on a lazy Saturday morning, she would tell me it was the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. One evening, after I surprised her with tickets to see an author she had once mentioned loving, she looked at me and said, "You pay attention. I've never dated anyone who actually listened like you do." With Grace, I finally felt that being myself wasn't just tolerated. It was celebrated. She made more money than Lila ever did, yet she was thrilled when I cooked us dinner at home instead of suggesting we go out to some overpriced restaurant. She adored our quiet evenings together, our weekend hikes, and our long conversations about books and what we wanted for the future. A new chapter. A year and a half into dating Grace, I proposed. It wasn't a grand production. No Paris trips or Tiffany boxes. Just the two of us on the hiking trail where we had first opened up to each other about our goals and dreams. Before I had even finished asking, she said yes. Planning our engagement party with Grace was unlike anything I had experienced before. She wanted it simple, joyful, focused on food, laughter, and being surrounded by the people we loved. There was no competition, no showing off, no pressure, just genuine happiness. The return of Lila. That's when Lila reappeared. It was last Saturday. Grace and I were celebrating our engagement in Ethan's backyard with about 50 friends and family. Nothing extravagant, just a casual, happy gathering. Grace looked stunning in a simple blue dress, and I couldn't stop smiling as I watched her chatting with my parents, who adored her. I was by the cooler grabbing drinks when I noticed a familiar figure near the gate. Lila. She wore a dress far too formal for a backyard party and clutched a gift, looking hesitant and out of place. My sethanac dropped. I hadn't seen her in nearly 3 years. I intercepted her before she could step further inside. "Hi, Noah," she said quietly. "Congratulations. I heard you got engaged." "Thank you, Lila, but you can't be here." I know. I brought a gift. I wanted to congratulate you both." "How did you even know about this?" "Chloe posted something on Instagram. I saw the address." I glanced back. Grace was happily talking with my sister, completely unaware. Lila kept going. "I just wanted to say I'm happy for you. You look really happy." "I am, but you need to leave." Can I just meet her? Meet Grace? Just to say congratulations?" "No. Please, Noah. I know things ended badly, but I've changed. I've grown up." I studied her face. She looked older, worn down, stripped of the confidence she used to flaunt. What remained was desperation. "Lila, I'm engaged to someone I love deeply. This is our celebration. You being here isn't appropriate." Her voice cracked. "I made such a huge mistake with you. I see that now. I'm glad you realized it, but it doesn't change anything. We had something real before I screwed it up." I shook my head. "No, we didn't. Real relationships don't involve one person being embarrassed by the other. Real love isn't conditional on money or gifts. You knew what mattered. You just decided I didn't matter enough." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, no satisfaction. Just mild annoyance that she was interrupting a perfect evening. "I should go," she whispered finally. "Yes, you should." I watched her walk back to her car and drive away. Then I returned to the party, kissed my fiancé, and continued celebrating the best thing that had ever happened to me. Later, Grace asked who the woman at the gate was. "Someone from my past," I said. "Nobody important." And for the first time, that was the absolute truth. Thanks for reading. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. What do you think about this one? Share your thoughts in the comments.